So right here we're going to take a look at imagination, the power of imagination, the faculty of imagination, and the brain, and the importance of this tool called imagination. Now, we hear so much about that, and it's gotten to the point to where we hear about imagination, it just, we know it's like a cool sounding kind of cool, positive tool that we have, and yeah, we've heard before that, that you can, whatever you can dream of in your imagination, you can make a reality, and some form of that. We've been hearing that for years, but I want to stop and just slow down, really focus in on that, and take it to a little bit of a deeper level. The power behind imagination, it's so crucial to comprehend it, because that is one of the key components of where real transformation begins to happen. That is how we begin to really take control of our lives, how we learn to create our reality. And the thing with it's such an underused tool, because we, as a human race, it's like somewhere along the way people started switching over to just more of a kind of like unenlightened ego consciousness, an unenlightened consciousness of just doing everything just through action, doing everything just through hard work. That's not to say, I want to be very clear, that we don't need an impeccable work ethic, and that there are times when we are going to break a sweat and work hard and have to work long hours. I still, have not seen how to transcend that. Not saying it's not possible, but until, we've perfectly figured that out, we still need to get in sync with having a good, strong work ethic. But the thing is that it still needs to begin in the imagination. And we've broken away from imagination as the primary tool and just turned it to action and willpower and work. Like, most people can understand how, well, if you're going to increase your income, you need to, work more hours and get a better degree, and, that kind of stuff people can understand, because it goes in that very left brain kind of logical type of mindset, very linear type of mindset. But there's a much more powerful tool, and that's the imagination. And when we start taking control of this faculty, the imagination, it's like then you can make quantum breakthroughs. Because when you start to take control and imagine what it is that you want, not just what is in the here and now, but what you want, and see it and see it and see it and see it, you start to go and see it without limitations, especially. You start to go right for what you want on a higher level, because you're building more of a real faith, and you're not just struggling, to start from the bottom of the ladder, the lower rung, and then move up little by little. You're right away believing for what you want, and that helps accelerate your process in whatever the case may be. Now, sometimes you still may need to go from top to bottom, but at least when you're using your imagination, your sense of optimism stays strong, and you stay progressive, because you've imagined the end result. And a lot of times it can help you skip a lot of steps, because you're seeing the ideal of what you want. So when we take our imagination and learn to harness it as a tool, it's like we're using a different part of the brain. We're using a part of the brain that's more in communication with the subconscious mind. And this starts to reprogram that subconscious mind, and helps us just connect more, even with things on a more, let's say, metaphysical level. Okay, where now it puts us in a certain frequency, and it makes us more magnetic to the things that we want. So it's important that we understand the power of this tool, the power of imagination, and to stop and think that we just take this for granted. But right now, as you're listening to this, you can essentially, there's no limits to what you can imagine. You can stop and imagine yourself a multi-millionaire. You can stop and imagine yourself one of the best in your field or in your industry. You can imagine yourself at your ideal weight. There's no limits to what we can imagine. We can even imagine things that we didn't think maybe were possible. Maybe somebody wants to even play around with imagining some of their hair growing back, or imagining a wound completely healing up, imagining wrinkles go away. We don't think to take imagination even to that level. So this is a tool. Just even right now as you're listening, imagine that not even just imagine it, but just really process that you can use this imagination, the ability to create images in your mind, and there's no limits to the images that you can imagine. And when you create those images and you put focus and you put a little bit of passion, or preferably a lot of passion, with the image, imagination and passion together, that starts to create movement, and on a metaphysical level, and then on an action level, then that's where action should spring from. That's more like empowered action. That's like faith-based action. That's very different from just willpower action, lower willpower action, where you're just like, well, I know that in order to succeed I have to work hard, even though I totally don't feel like it, I don't feel like doing these things. It's a very kind of like uninspired way to go about life, is just the willpower way. So really, let's let that sink in. Imagination, what we can do, the fact that there's no limit on what we can imagine, how it communicates deeper with the subconscious mind, and how that part of the brain is underused in creating our lives. We depend too much on linear thinking, will, logic, okay, just simple logic. But something along the way has been lost. And in order to really have a more enlightened life, we need to go and start working more with that part of the mind that can imagine and bring those those senses, the inner senses as well. Use our senses when we're imagining it. Get good at seeing it and hearing it and tasting it. And it's like a muscle that gets stronger. And the more you practice imagination, the quicker you can just start to take an image and in a very short amount of time, like, fuse with it, just make it come alive. And when you do that, you really start to take control of your life at a whole new level, at a level that very, 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 very few people ever live. Okay? So, good luck, and keep pondering on the power of imagination.